7. Clutter / buried trash. F. Raj, Sally, come on, it is spring. You two are always anxious to go outside in spring. Frog and Sally refuse to go outside after the end of last fall's encounter with the black-eyed lady. They say she continues to laugh at them in the night, saying, "I will eat you. It is only a matter of time before you come out here, and I will eat you, and Clutter will burn down your house." Steph nor Tom believes her. Steph mentioned to me she felt fine with the lady with black eyes. Tom liked her too, he said. "I wonder if she is looking for a husband, because I would make a great man for her." My feelings toward the lady: I love the lady. I looked out my window several times in hopes she was out there, but I never saw her. I will not forsake Frog or Sally, so I invite them. On the day I got them to go outside with me, I was in my father's library and I was looking in a book, the same book Steph and I were looking at last fall, the one with the newspaper article on the inside. According to the book, in an article written by Corin Stua, the family who lived here in this mansion long ago was fined for throwing much garbage into the woods out back of the house. According to the article, trash could be found miles into the woods. I suddenly remember the black-eyed lady mentioning, if we got lost out there, to follow the trash home. I must tell that to Frog and Sally. I must tell them there is nothing to fear if we get lost out there. We will follow the trash home. I will have to mention this article to them. Knock. Knock. I open the door to Frog's bedroom. I see both him and Sally sitting in the floor with many toys scattered around them. "You two," I say, holding up the book article. "We should go outside and explore the woods. According to this article, there is a ton of trash back there in the forest. Who knows what we could find? Plus, if we get lost, we simply follow the trash home," I say. "I do not know, Jill. What if there are bears out there?" Frog asks. "I want to go out," Sally says. "Come on, Frog," I say. "Okay," Frog says, getting up. He walks over to a chest and begins pulling out clean clothes. "Sally, go get ready. Meet me downstairs in the kitchen by the back door," I say. I open the back door. Spring air blasts me in the face. I take a deep breath, taking in all that spring has to offer: dead grass, leaves that have been disposed of after soaking up last summer's sunlight, and all the mud in the backyard. I stand in the kitchen, in between the kitchen and the backyard, in between the door leading to the backyard. Within 5 minutes, Frog and Sally rush into the kitchen. "Where is Steph and Tom?" Frog asks. "Steph, Tom, we are about to go outside. Are you coming?" I yell into the living room. They both at the same time get off the living room couch and walk into the kitchen. "So, what are we going to do out there?" Tom asks. "We are going trash digging," I answer. Steph adds, "My dad at one point had me follow him into the woods to dig trash. He said some of the trash is worth thousands this day and age." "So, you have done something like this before?" I ask. "Yes, a lot of the people did on my street. They would call it digging. They were kind of like archaeologists. What I remember was a good time, like a treasure hunt, always anticipating a great find with each layer of dirt removed," Steph answers. "Actually, I did not think hard about this," I say, running over to the cupboard, grabbing a plastic bag and a small garden shovel. "Okay, now we are ready," I say. We walk off into the woods, keeping an eye out for any wildlife or dangers we may find, especially the lady with black eyes. "I hope we do not get lost here," Sally says. "I do not see any trash," I mention. "It probably is miles down that way," Frog says, pointing into the deep forest. "Right, but think about it. Who would carry their trash all the way down there if they could leave it right here?" Steph says. "I am going to try digging right here," I mention. "Hold on a second, there is a dirt hill to our left. Whenever my parents brought me digging, we always dug on the side of a bank," Steph says. "Most likely true, Jill. It is common for people to throw their trash over a bank rather than on the flat ground. That way when they come walking through they will not walk on the trash," Tom says. "Okay, well, let us walk over to the bank and there we will dig," I answer. We carefully walk over to the bank. I peek over. "Wow, there is a ton of stuff back here: glass, old toys, pottery and tires," I say. Tom adds, "There must be 100 tires," pointing to one tire, then another. Steph grabs the small garden shovel out of my hand. "I will show you what my parents showed me." Steph crouches down slightly, standing at the beginning of the slope. She begins to move dirt with the shovel. As she does, she says, "All you need to do is gently remove the dirt. We do not want to break anything below it, so we must carefully remove the top layer of dirt." My mom said, certain items that can be found are worth thousands, like an old glass maple jar with the log cabin on top, That one could be worth $2,000, Steph says. I crouch down beside Steph, noticing worms with each shovel of dirt. Old pottery pieces are all about rolling down the hill as the dirt is removed. Tom walks over to our left and pulls out of the ground a glass jar. No lid is on the top. Wow, this one sparkles in the light, Tom says. I pick my head up to see if the lady with black eyes could be seen, but I saw nothing. Suddenly I felt a load of daily pressures fall off my back as we began to play in the forest. I began to lose my sense of time. We dug and dug. Without noticing and not wanting to notice time, we begin to dream of lasting days. These items are so nice, we should make a pretend store, Tom says. We can do a house too, I mention. As I began collecting stuff for our pretend house. Steph says, let me pretend to be your husband. I forgot all about time. I sort of lost my mind and I intended to. I could sense something in the woods. Perhaps it was the colors in the sky or maybe it was the ancient trash. Something out there inspired me to lose my living behavior. It must have been years out back behind our house. I built an almost fortress with furnishings. I collected an old sink, a couch, pots, and old blankets. As Steph and I are playing married, a lady shows up in the window of our stick house. She says, you two make a good couple, that must mean I will not be taking either of the two of you home today. Steph and I were overexcited to see her and began to flirt. The woods around here are more, I have been living in them for hundreds of years, the lady with black eyes says. Frog, amazed, comfortably walks into our little house in the forest. Frog had done the same thing as us, losing his sense of time. Hi, Frog says to the lady. Hi, the lady says back, good to see you children out here, and remember if you get lost out here, simply follow the trash home. Okay, we say, but we did not understand what she meant, we were having so much fun. Did you notice something about the trash, Jill? Frog asks. Sally walks into the little house. I say, I did notice something, that I am having an extremely fun time. That is because of the trash, Frog says. I think about it for a moment, noticing the lady with black eyes had moved away from the window and could no longer be found. We sure have been out here for a long time, I cannot remember a time in my life that I had so much fun. I began to fear I would never return home. What could be doing this? I think hard. I began to think about Frog's words, it is because of the trash. Maybe you are right, Frog, maybe the trash is giving us an extremely fun time. I begin to express my concern to the others. We must get home, I say, this is not normal. Steph agrees. How are we going to get home? Steph asks. The lady said to follow the trash home, I answer. Steph looks up and begins to think. Tom interrupts, knowing he is somehow different. Maybe we should have been home now. Steph looks at Tom and barks, Tom, I know what I am doing, I do not use drugs. I do not either, Tom argues. I say, this is not all that bizarre, times have changed. I did not mention that you do drugs, I mentioned I do not do drugs, Steph says, looking at Tom. Come on, Steph, I do not do drugs either. Tom begins to act different, paranoid as if he were separated. As Steph began to talk of drugs, Tom began to appear as if he did, so much so, I could not help but treat him as a recovering drug addict. What were we to do again? Steph asks, looking at me. Maybe we are supposed to go home, I answer. I fail to think, I sit down on the leaf-covered forest floor. Steph began to talk to Tom again, but she was not treating him as normal. Days go by and we failed to think about how we were going to get home. I pretend to marry Steph, and Frog pretends to marry us, and Tom, well, he appeared to be different altogether. We would involuntarily talk to Tom as a different entity. We watched him fit in with this creature we made of him, and through that creature he attempted to explain that he was inhabiting the strange lifelike force. Jill, Steph, it is Tom, I am stuck inside of a wart or something, Tom says. Okay, Tom, sure, Steph replies. Do not treat me like that, Tom argues. You are absolutely on drugs, Steph says. I do not have the thing that helps me think at the moment, Tom answers. You are a wart. I question. I am not a wart, I am attached to the growing thought wart that is esteeming badly, Tom says. So, you are a thought wart? I ask. I have to pretend that I am what Steph esteemed me to be. Which is on drugs. Steph says. Steph picks up a small branch and throws it at Tom's head. Stop, Steph, Tom cries. I started realizing I was partially asleep, that we all were acting out of character. Steph, I yell. Tom does not know, I said, laughing at Tom. Tom explains, This is not me, I am only pretending to be what you made me out to be. Okay, sure Tom. Frog could tell something was drastically different and knew he had to act fast. He crouches down next to Sally and says, "Follow me." "I am going home," Frog yells, "we will get lost out here." I panic, "Come on you two, we have to follow them." We run off into the woods yelling, "Stop you two, wait for us." After 30 minutes of chasing them we caught up to them and came to realize we were totally lost in the forest. "What are you two doing?" I yell. "We got to get home," Frog says. Sally adds, "Our parents must be worried about us." Plus, Tom seems to be having a problem, Frog adds. I began thinking about how deep we are in the forest and how my mind is far away from my known reality. "Like I said, Jill, I am just pretending to be this thing you are making me out to be," Tom says. I knew I should not respond. I must think, how are we going to get home? I look at Frog. Frog looks at me and at the same moment we say, "We follow the trash home." I know what to do. This began when we started moving the trash around, I say. "So, the trash is moving us around," Steph says. "Maybe the trash can speak, but not in our language," Sally adds. Tom says, "Well, it does have a shine to it, possibly saying something about this distant past. What if we take our recently make-believe house and store and listen to the trash? What if we place it where it appears to belong?" I say. "Good idea." We rush back to the spot we had spent several months at and began to rearrange the objects we pulled out of the dirt. "This looks like a jar that belongs in the bushes," Tom says, picking up a glorious jar. "This jar is beautiful," I say, pulling it out of Tom's hand. "I have never seen anything like this before." "It almost says plant me in a plant pot," Tom adds. Tom digs up some dirt and places it in the jar. He gently digs up a small berry plant and places it in the jar. He begins to carefully add water to the recently planted berry plant. He gently places the berry plant on the counter of our wood and stick pretend store. "It looks like the jar is saying, 'I am the mystery,'" Steph says. "So true," I add. "Well, if this is the beginnings of the mystery, we should try some more objects and finish it." Without eating or sleeping we dig. We found plates, jars, stoves, car parts, and precious objects. Thousands of pieces we pull out of the ground. We gaze at them. "I would never want to leave these objects," Tom yells. "They were stunning and marvelous." "What are they saying?" I ask. Answers. "A store. A toy factory. Our stuff." I wait, pause, and say, "Objects that belong to us, something given to us, something we use to imagine life." Steph yells. "Exactly, it says we make the laws to our surroundings." At that moment we woke up in Frog's closet, to the board game Frog and Sally had been playing before we decided to explore the forest. I look around Frog's closet and attempt to question the others. "That was so weird," Frog says, picking up the board game. Sally follows him. The moment was awkward, so I said, "Well, we did not get lost." Clutter must be stopped. J. Il, what do you think happened a week ago when we played in the forest for months? Frog asks. I look toward him sitting across from me. Step to my left, sitting on the couch with me, begins to say, "Frog," but forgot what she was going to say. I expected that answer from Steph because I did not have an answer myself. In the moment of Steph's pause I glance over at the television. 4G cell phone networks are completely covering the country, the man representing a wireless network says. "Is there anything we should be worried about?" the host of the show asks. 4G can send frequencies above 24 GHz, the advertiser says. The host gives him a serious look, many questions expressed on her face. 24 GHz can expose if directed at a particular individual to such radiation that the heat of the radiation could cause blood and tissue loss, the person representing the wireless network says. I look toward Steph. "This is it?" "What?" Steph asks. 4G networks, I answer. "You mean to answer, Frog?" Steph asks. "Yes, Frog, maybe it is 4G. 4G can cause blood loss, and due to our blood loss, we hallucinated the whole forest journey," I answer. "Maybe," Frog responds. "Jill, if it was due to blood loss, how could we all have hallucinated the same thing?" Steph asks. I consider the question for a moment. "I do not know," I answer. We put our faces down towards the floor. I say, "I wonder what that forest journey was about." "I am going up to Frog's closet," Steph says, raising herself up off the couch. Frog and I follow. Steph quietly walks into Frog's closet, tapping on the walls as she completely walks in. I tap on a couple walls myself. Everything looks normal in this room, Steph says. I need answers, Frog says. Where is Sally? I add. She is in the tub, Frog says. She said that things get tossed out of her closet. Maybe we should go over there and investigate. Frog leads the way. Walking into Sally's room, I glance over at her tiny bed, wrapped in a bright pink blanket. A small white child's desk was to the right. Frog peeks into the closet. I do not see anything odd or out of place. I peek over Frog's shoulder. Okay, I answer. We slowly walk away from the closet. Steph says, where is the clutter? That closet is the same closet that clutter was thrown everywhere years ago when we disobeyed and came over here against your parents' will. Jill, Steph, I hear Tom say. In here, in Sally's room, Steph answers. As Tom enters Sally's bedroom, I hear that sound that was in the tomato patches. Suddenly, without warning, some of Sally's possessions were thrown out of the closet. Balled up in a pile of clothes, in Sally's closet was what appeared to be a creature. Grunt. Grunt. Oh, my goodness, Steph says. This is our chance to figure out why these strange things are happening. Who are you? I yell across the room, into the closet. Rumble. Grunt. I am Steph, Steph yells toward the creature. Oh yeah, the creature says within the closet, under a pile of clothes. Slowly the top of his head peeks out from within the clothes, exposing just his eyes. I am Clutter, the small little hairy black/brown colored thing says. I began to hear the sound I heard in the tomato patches, the sound of deep crud and a burnt environment. I remember you, I yell. Okay, Clutter says, chewing on something. Hold on, Steph commands. What is all this about? This is not normal. Things like this do not happen in normal life. Okay, Clutter says. Why do the closets take us away from time to time? I ask. Clutter pauses. The strange sound Clutter makes still coming from the closet. Clutter says, sounding like a cat speaking, I will burn down your entire house. Clutter begins to laugh. I am turning on the gas inside the closets right now, Clutter says. Why? Steph asks. You cannot do that. We just want to know why we are taken places from inside the closets. Ms. Rugg wants to keep you for herself. You can live in her gardens amongst the tomato patches, Clutter says with excitement in his voice. No. No, she cannot keep us, I say. Then we will burn down your house. Steph runs over to the closet door and slams it shut, pushing the Clutter tight into the closet. We rush up Sally's bedroom and hurry downstairs. Tom says, what the heck is going on, as we rush down the stairs. I suddenly remember Sally in the tub. I got to get Sally. I rush back up the stairs, Sally just getting out of the tub. I wrap a towel around her and lead her down the stairs and into the kitchen. We sit down on the bar stools of the recently set up bar my father had built. What was that? Tom again says. Do you think he will burn down the house? Steph asks. I notice Tom, once again seeing him as foreign. Steph seemed to notice it as well. Tom, why don't you know what is going on? Steph says, snorting. Yeah, Tom, it is like you are all screwed up. How much drugs did you do today? I say, laughing. Tom, noticing, he suddenly is shocked and begins to do as he did the last time, which is play the scar we just had made. Think about this, Tom, you have no clue what is going on, Steph says and begins to laugh. Tom, knowing, he was smart, smarter than both Steph and I, says, I know where we are in a magical land. Tom says, disgusted with this thing we were making out of him. Seeing that you know, how are we going to get home? How are we going to stop Clutter from burning down the house? I ask. I smell gas, Steph says. That means Clutter turned on the gas in the closets. Tom says, I know what to do. It is the 4G. The 4G is the gas. Does 4G mean Dad's internet? I ask. Tom, playing us stupid to fit in with the extra growth we made of him. Yeah, Jill. We all are 4G and on fire. Shut up, Tom. Do not be stupid, Steph says without meaning. I am serious, Steph. 4G, according to my dad, mildly warms our body temperature, I say. I do not think that is what Clutter was talking about, I answer. I smell gas. Nobody make a spark, I command. We sat there for a moment in breathing in and out the gas coming from the closet. Without sincere consideration, Steph and I begin to mock Tom. Tom is the gas to you, better than the drugs you do. I do not do drugs, Steph. That is what drug-type people usually say. They did not do it, I say. Okay, I do drugs. You got me. That is why I said 4G. 4G does not warm out bodies, Tom says. Tom dude, man you are so screwed up, Steph says. I am going into my room. Steph, are you coming? Yes. We both get off the bar stools and began to approach the hallway leading to the ancient staircase that leads to my room. Wait for us, Frog says. Tom, are you coming? Frog asks. Yes. They both catch up to us and we make our way up to my room. I am going to sit in the closet, Steph says. Why the closet? I say laughing. There is an adventure in the closet. Frog agrees and hurries in front of Steph. We sit down on the wood floor. I wonder if something bizarre will happen to us, Steph says. What about Clutter burning down the house? Tom asks. I did not notice, but Sally had been following us in her pink towel the whole time. Sally, you have not gotten dressed yet, Steph says as Sally cuddles up in her arms. As we were talking and making fun of Tom, we found ourselves in a North American forest like the 100-acre forest behind our house. We were so out of our mind we forgot to be surprised by finding ourselves in the forest. I look to my left, towards Steph, and attempt to yell. I freeze. I cannot move. I see Ms. Rugg crawling on all fours. She reaches. She grabs Sally's foot and drags her off into the forest. Her towel falls off and I watch her in her bathing suit get dragged off into the dark forest. We scramble to our feet. Sally. We run after her into the darkness of the forest. We run for about 1/2 an hour, following the drag marks of Sally being dragged by the ankle. We get tired and stop for a moment. I cannot keep going, Jill, I hear Steph say as I begin to move the thick-leafed branch in front of me. Wow, look. I speak. Tom and Steph peek through the foliage. Houses. In the middle of the forest. We walk out onto the small square paved road that appeared to begin at the forest line and end 100 feet down at the other end of the forest line. Sally. Tom yells. We hear nothing. We quietly approach one of the smaller houses, the white one. We hear nothing but a windless forest. We peek into one of the windows, the one closest to the paved road, the road that goes nowhere. We see Ms. Rugg place Sally down on the bed. You stay here, and be a good girl, Ms. Rugg says while walking into another room. Tom starts banging on the window. I soon join him. Sally. Sally. Sally looks in our direction. As she attempts to get out of the bed, Ms. Rugg rushes into the room with a knife. Sally screams. We wake back up in the closet hearing Sally scream and Ms. Rugg laugh. I look at Sally wrapped in Steph's arms. Are you okay, Sally? I ask. Yes, I am fine. Do you remember where you just were? Yes, I was in a room with the lady with black eyes. You did not get hurt, did she hurt you? Steph asks. No. No, I do not think so. That was so bizarre. Tom probably was drugged up the whole time, Steph adds. We both laugh. Okay, it must have been the 4G, Tom says. My dad's internet. I ask. No, Jill, I am just pretending to be this to keep my mind intact, Tom says. No, you're not, Tom, you are screwed up, Steph says. Okay, it is the 4G going around. Yes, it is your dad's internet, and you two have been heating up and now we are beginning to break up, Tom says. What do you do about that? Frog asks, remembering what he did in the forest, which was run away. I pretended to be losing reality so I can keep it, Tom says. Like an undercover cop, Sally asks. Yes, for myself, Tom says. As of right now I am thinking that the radiation comes at us, and, because the 4G code is making voids and we have to make something out of it, we pretend something is there. The more we do this we begin to see what we want, breaking up our bodies in the real world, which is sort of like a fire. We are no longer mortals the same way we were before we started making something out of the radiation, Tom explains. Tom, you are just pretending to be you right now. How do you know that information? Because it makes sense, I say. Yeah, Tom, just this morning we were watching on television about 4G, Steph says. I do not know, Tom answers, maybe it is the radiation. Once Tom was other than being made fun of, he got more than mean. Mean was not Tom's character. You know, Steph, you basically are a brute beast, Tom says. What? Basically, you really need to shut up from time to time. Is that the radiation too? Steph asks. Whatever. I do not actually remember you. Seriously, I do not think you could be that immature, Tom says. Steph begins crying a little. Tom, do you need help to be put on some more drugs? I say. Tom looked at me, full of rage. He was about to freak out and I was going to enjoy it. I punch the back wall. I look at Steph with small tears in her eyes. I look at Tom and say, corrections officer, and begin to laugh. I am leaving, Tom says, getting up off the floor. I suppose we are going to be set on fire as well as this house, Tom says, walking out of my bedroom. I look at Steph. Steph says, I suppose it could be true. Clutter might be burning down the house at this very moment. Why are we finding these strange worlds? Steph questions. Maybe Tom is right. Maybe Clutter can tamper with the internet and cause us to be other than the reality we were, I say. Tom, I yell into the hallway. Tom walks into the room. Tom, if Clutter is tampering with Dad's 4G internet, what should we do about that? I ask. Tom puts his head down and begins to think. I do not know the answer if you are being serious, Tom says. So, you, in your own words, pretending to be what we made you out to be, have now become an all-knowing God, Steph asks. Yes, exactly, Tom answers, and adds, somehow. Well, in that case, I say, who am I? I cannot know though, Tom says. I was faking being the dope, the dreamlike state. It is like I could, but maybe it was only so I could pull us out of the fire. At that moment, banging could be heard on the closet walls, not just mine but throughout the upstairs. You all will burn, and your little dog too, Clutter says, sounding like a loud talking cat. Nine. We must save the house. We must stop Clutter. Put it down, Steph says, running over to him and ripping the spoon out of his hand. Brat, bad people cannot eat good food, Steph kids. Get off the drugs, Tom, I tease. Tom whimpers. This is so unfair. He looks at me, informing me he was at his breaking point. I laugh, hoping to drive him over the edge in a fit of rage. Tom suddenly seems to alter his being and begins to solve problems. Clutter must want to burn down this house for a reason, Tom says. Maybe he thinks we are sick, like pandemic sick, and he wants to remove the sickness off the face of the planet, Tom says. We must stop him, Steph answers. We should go up to the closet and have a talk with him, tell him we are not sick, he does not have to burn down our house, I say. Okay, let's do it. We walk up the stairs, we walk into the closet. Clutter, you do not have to burn down the house, we are not sick, I say into the closet. Suddenly Frog, Sally, Steph, Tom, and I are translated into a field of tomato patches. I look around. A few apple trees could be seen in the distance. An old white farmhouse was behind me. Where are we? Sally utters. I look around. I begin to be drawn towards the soundless sound of dirty farm crowd music, touched with dirty curiosity. I look to find where the sound is coming from. I walk through some of the patches of tomatoes. I notice some of them moving. Clutter, where are we? Steph and Tom look at me and walk over. Clutter, we are not sick, Steph says. Clutter sounds to reject our idea. I want Sally, Clutter demands. What do you mean? You cannot have Sally, I declare. Give her to me or I will burn it down. Even if you do not, I will burn you down and steal her from her room. She likes me, every night we spend playing games, Clutter says. I look at Sally in disbelief. Sally, I begin saying. I play with him from time to time, Sally forcefully admits. You cannot have her, I say, and begin walking toward the farmhouse. The others follow close behind. I begin without consideration peeking into the windows of the tiny farmhouse. I turn around and look at the others. Where is Sally? I ask. Tom gives a confused look. I do not know. She was right by my side a moment ago, Steph says in confusion. We must find her, I say. We bust through the door of the small house. Sally. She lies asleep on the old planks of the old wooden floor of the small old farmhouse. Tom picks her up into his arms and rushes her sleeping body back outside. I follow. Sally. Sally. I am up here, Sally says. Where? I ask. Up here in the closet. We opened and sure enough we were still in the closet. I hug Sally. Good thing Clutter did not take you. No, he will not take me. He wants all of us, Sally says. He's not getting you, nor is he getting all of us. He is not going to burn my house, I cry. Why would he want Sally in exchange for not burning down my house, I express. I thought Ms. Rugg and Clutter liked us, Tom says. We should find a lady with black eyes and ask her, Steph says. Good idea, I answer. We get up off the closet floor. I tell Sally, get dressed quick, we are going out behind our house. Good, everything still looks normal out here, I utter while walking out the back door. We search the backyard, we peek into the woods, we look on the side of the banks of the river, and no Ms. Rugg. As we walk through the woods, Tom mentions that it is a very real possibility that Ms. Rugg is threatening us because she wants us out of her house. I say, Tom, if it is still her house, then what are we doing living here? Tom reveals, the question is not so much what are we doing here, but rather are we here? That truly is scary, Tom, I say. Ms. Rugg, Steph calls out. Ms. Rugg. We hear a sound in the bushes. It was Ms. Rugg. Yes, we hear in an elegant voice, what can I do for you? Why are you trying to burn down my house? I ask. Tom adds, do you want us to leave? We can if you truly need us to leave. No, children, I do not want to keep you all. I do not want to burn down your house, nor do I want you to leave, Ms. Rugg says. Why is Clutter threatening to burn down our house? Tom asks. Ms. Rugg casually walks out of the bushes, taps each child on the shoulder. Can I have Sally? Ms. Rugg asks as she takes hold of Sally's hand to lead her out to the woods. No, you cannot, I say. All us children open our eyes, and we find ourselves in Sally's closet. This is so weird. We have no power if gravity and the truth that our feet are walking into the woods are no longer there, Steph says. Perhaps this is what being on fire feels like, Tom adds. Whatever it is, we must stop it, I say. Steph suddenly says, I think I got it. Jill, do you remember that room downstairs, the room that has a big lock on it? Steph says. Yes, I remember, the room with the piano on the inside. Steph asks in suspicion, what if it has something to do with that room? What if we touched something that would cause all this to happen? Tom decides, we could go down there and investigate if you think it would help. It had a giant lock on it, I react. Your dad had bolt cutters in the garage, I had seen them when we grabbed the ladder, Tom says. Not sure if we should, I pressed my lips together in defiance, but I knew we had to. Reluctantly I say, okay Tom, let's do that. We rush out the back door. I look up noticing the small raindrops falling out of the sky. It is starting to rain, I say. We walk left of the back of the mansion to my father's garage. We enter the side entrance. Here is where I saw them, and here they are, Tom says, picking up the bolt cutters. We walk toward the back of the house. Tom aims the bolt cutters to the huge lock on the back door. With one quick snip, the lock falls off. Tom pushes open the old green door. The bottom of the door rubs the concrete floor as Tom opens the door. This is a nice room, Tom states as we enter. We must be careful, I say, if we did touch something, and this is the reason why Clutter is screwing with us and we are being threatened, much worse could happen if we touch something bigger. Steph walks over to the couch covered with a white sheet. She sits down. I sit on one of the kitchen chairs, hoping to stumble upon the answer and fix all the mess and save our house from burning down. I look out the only curtainless window. Heavy raindrops are now splattering off the window. Small sounds of thunder could be heard from the clouds. Sally left the door open as we entered. I could feel the warm air outside, pushing itself inside the house. Pine sways in the wind. Well, Jill, here we are, but seriously, I do not know what to do from here, Tom says. The last time I came here, I say, I touched a couple of the piano keys. I sat gazing at the rain for about an hour before I moved to explore the locked portion of our mansion. I slowly, without consideration, moved toward one of the unlit rooms. I flip on the light. The room looked familiar. Some of the objects in the room appeared as if I had seen them before, but not only seen them but at one point owned them. I touched the paperwork. I began to flip through photos. I lost my conceived reality and unconsciously decided to pretend to know what I was doing, that I knew who the people in the photographs were. I storm out of the room that I was in. I take a photo and lift it to Steph's face. I know this man. He is my uncle, I say, making it apparent that I was playing. I present it to Tom. See, Tom, I am much more than you think. I in the past played the piano for you. I stayed in this room, Tom reveals. And I am your sister, Steph says. Exactly, I am a millionaire. It is all coming back to me now, I say jokingly, yet wishing I were being serious. As we are making believe, laughing, and having fun, a fire erupted on the stove of the small kitchen of the room we were in. Fire! Fire! We rush outside. Frog picks up Sally, rushing her out in the pouring rain. Cold, heavy drops of rainwater quickly drenched my shirt I was wearing. It is pouring out here, Tom yells. We look back to see how much the fire had spread. Smoke began pouring out the door. Windows began to pop. I began to run toward the front of the house. I got to save Mom and Dad. I cry. Tom grabs me by the shoulder. Wait, Jill. I look at the house. The fire must have ruptured a gas line. The house exploded in flames. The entire house was on fire. Mom, Dad, I yell. I fall to the rain-drenched, thick grassy ground of the backyard, my head down and my hands resting on the wet grass. I open my eyes. I look at my surroundings. I am wrapped in a blanket in Sally's closet. I look directly in front of me. I see Tom. Tom says, "That was so weird, the house burned down." Steph adds, "This sure is strange, there is no way we can live like this." At first, I was having fun, I did not think much of it, but now I see, this is no way to be. What do you think, Frog or Sally? I express. Mom and Dad did not tell us this, Steph says. Frog adds, "We do not know what we should do. Should we tell Mom and Dad? Can we tell Mom and Dad?" I cannot believe Clutter is trying to burn our house down, I say. I pick myself up off the closet floor and walk downstairs. The others followed me. I walk into the kitchen, toward the back door. I open the door and walk outside. The sun is shining, the air is warm. "Where are you going, Jill?" I hear Steph ask. All followed close behind. I walk to the door that just moments ago Tom cut the lock off. I touch the lock with my hands. "You must not have cut it," I say to Tom. "Like I said, Jill, this is so weird, unstably weird. We must do something or truly we will be no more." The route to us. A. After the house burned down, or we thought it had burned down, we no longer wanted to explore on our own. Tom insisted we should tell my parents everything. I agreed. "Dad, Mom, where are you?" I say, attempting to find them after what seemed to be months exploring the closets. "Steph, I cannot find my parents," I say, feeling very weak. "Jill, please tell me you did not lose your parents," Steph says. "Dad has lately been in his partial office watching the news. I figured he still would be in there," I say. "Mr. Flippy," Steph says in a loud voice. "Do you all remember what I said about my mom saying all the people disappeared?" Tom mentioned. "I do not want to think of that right now, Tom," Steph says. "Seriously, where are Jill's parents?" Tom says. "Tom, I do not want to panic," Steph says. "Everyone, we must solve this. Quick, let us split. Let's search every room." We scramble to find my parents. Mrs. Flippy. Mom, Dad. And nothing. We searched every part of the house. The sun began to set and small fears began to enter our bodies. "Jill, where is Mom or Dad?" Frog asks. Frog, hold that thought. What do you and Sally want to eat tonight? Brownies. Cereal. How about your favorite, peanut butter, fluff, and raspberry jam on toasted bread? Yes. Please, Jill. Okay, follow me into kitchen, I say. I pull the tasty items out of the cupboard. I toast the bread in the oven. 5 minutes later, once the bread was toasted, the other children load their favorite toppings on the toasted bread. Fluff, peanut butter, jam, and chocolate lit up the kitchen. Once we were done, we were left with an extremely sticky mess. We were so happy to eat we forgot about our fear. I knew to keep it this way. We will just leave the mess for another day. I am going to watch television. I sit on the blue sofa. My belly is full of fluff and raspberry jam. I pick up the remote to the television. I press the power button. Dad must have been watching the news the last time this was on. We stared at the television. Mostly everyone fell asleep within 5 minutes, except Tom and I. Making headlines. Mrs. and Mr. Flippy disappears from inside their small suburb home in Waxtown, Mass. Police are still searching for the children. I did not see the police over here today or yesterday, I say to Tom. It is because they are lying, similar to what my mom and dad had mentioned before they suddenly disappeared, Tom says. I did not want to wake the others. I did not want them figuring this out. Tom, let's keep this between me and you, I say. I pick up the remote and turn on some cartoons. We sleep. We all wake up at the same time in the morning. Frog immediately says, I miss mom and dad. Sally agrees, I am scared. Where is mom? It will be all right, Steph says, wrapping her arms around both. I was concerned, but I was not all that upset by mom and dad disappearing. I could use an adventure. Wondering what we will find next, I invite the others to re-explore the mansion. I will search upstairs with Tom and you three search the downstairs, I say, pointing to Steph, Frog, and Sally. I do not know if we should, Jill. Frog says, what if that lady comes in here or we get lost in a closet? We will be fine, I say. Reluctantly, Frog goes with Steph to search the bottom floor. Tom and I search the second floor. 1/2 hour later, Steph, Frog, and Sally walk upstairs. We did not find anyone, Frog says. Strange, very strange, Tom says. Suddenly it occurred to me we have not explored the attic. What about the attic? I blurt. I have not been up there since we first moved in, I say. Okay, you lead the way, Steph says. We slowly walk toward the attic. Mom, Dad, I say. I hear nothing. I hate this attic, Sally says. We will go up really quick and come back down, I say. I run up the attic stairs, kind of freaking out. It was dark up there, lit by only a small window in the back. Tom, will you grab the light switch and turn on the light? I ask. Sure, Jill, Tom replies. He stumbles in the dark looking for the string that flips on the attic light. Click. Lights. Wow. Amazing. This is wonderful. I wonder what made Mom and Dad do this, I say. Maybe they didn't, Tom argues. I could not believe my eyes. Fudge, brownies with candy on top, cookies, pastries of all sorts, and soda, placed on tables in the attic. We rush to the nearest table and immediately begin eating. The food looked wonderful. I could not restrain my hands from grabbing more than enough. Why would Mom and Dad leave this up here? I say with a mouthful of food. Maybe they didn't, Jill, Tom says. Maybe we are dreaming, Steph adds. Do not say that. This is too delicious, Sally says. With a cookie in my hand, I begin to explore the huge attic. Through one room and into another. Hey, look. There are sweets down here too. I yell from 2 rooms down. The others rush to where I am. This is surely a dream, Jill. Your parents would not have left this amount of fresh food up here, Tom says. We could not eat this in a day, most likely not even a week, Tom says. Whatever it is, I do not want a problem at the moment, I say, still exploring the attic, an attic that seemed to have no end. Through one room and then another. Jill, was the furniture up here when you moved in? Tom asks. I guess so. I rarely come up here, so I would not know, I answer. It is so nice and comfortable, Steph adds. Exactly, I say. I would live up here, but my parents, they most likely would not let me. I began to think, oh yes, they are not here anymore, I say, relieved. Good thing, now I can live up here. I look at Steph, suddenly realizing I verbally uttered that I did not appreciate my parents. I thought you loved your parents, Steph says. I put my head down, listening to my own thought. I thought I did too. Jill hates Mom and Dad, and I am going to tell them, Frog utters while singing. Mom and Dad are not even here, Sally says. I snap back into reality. We must find Mom and Dad, I say. We should go back downstairs and watch television. Steph asks, should we call the police? I do not think they will understand, Tom says. I think we can find them, I say. We must stay focused. We rush back downstairs and sit in front of the television. Jill, turn on the news, Tom utters. I flip on the news. The first channel looked like the world news, so I changed it to another news station. As soon as I changed the channel, I hear Steph say, Jill, look. I look. Tom and Steph both say, Jill, that is your parents on the news. I get close to the television. Flippy family strangely disappears from their small suburb home. Food was prepared on their table, and the cars were in their driveway, but no family. The case is classified unsolved. The news anchorman says, presenting a picture of my parents, Sally, Frog, and I at Yellowstone National Park, taken before we moved. That cannot be true, Tom argues. Steph adds, it said, Flippy family. But Jill, you are not dead, Tom reasons. Neither is Frog or Sally, I state. Well, they must have screwed up, Tom admits. But where are your parents? Steph questions. I do not know, Steph, I express. Well, it is not like you love them, Steph states. What? That is what you said when we were in the attic, Steph teases. Whatever, Steph, I express. I get off the couch and walk into the kitchen. I notice the back door is open. I walk out into the sunlit grass. I take a breath of fresh air. I look around, careful to listen to the bird chirps. I casually look to my left. I see the door open, the door that should be locked, the door that leads to the piano. I slowly approach the door. I peek into the inside. Nobody is in there. I walk into the inside. Looks the same as it did the other day when I was over here. I pick up one of the pieces of paper sitting on the upright piano. I look at it. It was addressed to Ms. Rugg. Huh. I begin to read. Ms. Rugg, I know times are hard right now. Most people have had hard times. You should not bring yourself to a point where your entire existence becomes repulsion. I set the letter down. Strange, I could understand that. Rarely do I read. Most of the time I glance at the words, but I do not read them. I look at the windows, the curtains covering them. I ask myself, am I repulsing life? Why do I feel as if I am happy about the other people disappearing? Why am I happy that I cannot find my parents? I do not even care if my parents come back. If they do, at some point I will have to go back to school. I walk into the back room, thinking about my reality at this present moment. I pick up a photograph. A handsome man, in a fine suit, proud to be him, stands looking at me in the picture. I could almost think I have known the man, but I brush it off as a symptom of the pandemic happening on the outside world. I set the picture down on the photo pile dresser and begin to think. I hate my parents. I hate school. I recall watching my dad sit in front of the news playing on the television. It was as if he was waiting for the world to end. I recall as he was doing this, that I too was hoping that it would all end, and not only the world to end, but him, forcing me to go to school. I hated him and my mother for that. Jill. Jill. I hear from the backyard. It was Steph. Yes, Steph, I will be right out. I walk out onto the sun-drenched backyard. What were you doing? Steph asks. I stuff my emotions deep inside, hoping that my feeling towards my parents would not show up on the surface. The door to the locked room was open, so I went inside. I did not find anything though, I say, and begin to change the subject. I am hungry, I say. I walk inside the kitchen and begin to wander through the cupboards. There is not much in here. My mom is beginning to shop like you, Steph, very simply. What do you have in there? Steph asks. Baking soda, flour, raspberry jam, and beans. You have jam. Steph blurts, I know what to do with that. What else do you have? Steph asks. I begin to move items around the cupboard. We have some baking soda, not all that much else. I answer. I bet with these few items we can make biscuits or something like biscuits, Steph says. Okay, you lead the way. Steph pulls out a giant bowl. Sally and Frog heard things moving around the kitchen and came running out to see what we were doing. What are you doing? Frog asks. Making biscuits and jam, Steph answers. That sounds good, Sally says. How do we do that? Frog asks. My mom said to mix baking soda, baking powder, flour and water in a bowl, mix it just enough so it is thick and then simply put some heat to it, Steph answers. Sounds simple enough, I say. We make a big batch, pouring the dry stuff all together in a bowl and then pouring the water on the top. We take the loaf of dough and place it on a cookie sheet and pop it in the oven. 15 minutes later, Steph pours the whole jar of raspberry jam on the top of the now baked bread loaf. We wait for it to cool. We wildly rip chunks off the bread roll with our hands, stuffing our mouths, satisfying our bellies and our hopes of another day. "11. Where are my parents? EAD silence in the neighborhood as I gaze out the window onto the February snow. Cold wind could almost be felt as I watch the snow blow toward the trees, making funnels of powdery snow. I have not seen anyone in months, Tom says. Food is running out, Jill, Steph states. There are no people out there. Maybe we should run over to one of the neighbors and steal their food, I assert. Stealing is not stealing if your life depends on it, Tom adds. Let us get dressed and put on our winter gear, Steph includes. We walk out onto the cold snowy steps located in the front of my house, bundled up in winter gear, ski pants, gloves, hats, scarves. All 5 of us decided to go together, hoping we would lose none by the end of the day. First house just 2 houses down from our street. Jill, the neighbors are probably watching us, Tom states. If they are not, they will definitely see our footprints later, Frog adds. This is all too strange to consider. Why do I not know where Mom and Dad are? I respond. I peek into the first window. Lights are on. Dinner is ready. Tom shoves his head next to mine. That sure is strange, Jill. What do you think we should do? Like break in and take their food? Steph asks. Exactly, Tom says, pressing his hands against the window, opening it up. I will go in first to investigate, Tom says. You all wait out here. I am going to throw the food out, and you 4 put it in the packs, Tom says. Okay, I answer, watching Tom squeeze all the way through the window. Within seconds, Tom peeks his head back out the window he went through. It is strange in here. It looks and feels like people in here, but the truth is, there is no people, Tom says, placing some pasta in my hands. Plus, it smells like the oven has just been on. I put my hands on the food and it feels like it just came out of the oven, Tom says, before disappearing into the bedroom. Tom showed back up at the window with some candy, muffins, and soda, before we left to investigate the rest of the houses. Let's go to the blue one, Tom says, running across the street to one of the blue houses. We follow. Just knock on the door, Tom. If no one answers, we will break the door down, Steph says. Knock. Knock. No answer. Kick the door, Tom, I say. Tom begins to kick the door down. Crack. Pop. The door pops open. As expected, fresh food was prepared on the kitchen table as we storm the house. Frog and Sally rush toward the food. They begin to eat. Cookies, ham, pizza, and cake. Frog and Sally began to stuff their mouths with the goodness on the preset tables. As they were eating, I look around the house we were in. It is all so strange. The entire street seemed to sit desolate as if we were the last survivors of some mega disaster, yet all the homes were presented as if they were inhabited. Such a strange nuclear environment, if such a thing exists. This almost looks like a town covered in radiation, I say. Tom nods his head up and down in agreement. Steph says, I think I know what you are talking about. I saw something just like that on television not too long ago. That city? I ask. Yes, the one with the nuclear power plant explosion. Its appearance on television looked the same way it appears on this street. Maybe it has something to do with the 4G cell phone towers, Tom says. I miss Mom, Sally says. I will find her. I look toward the horizon at the end of the street. A patch of snow-covered pine trees stood at the distant end of the street. The sky radiated bright pink just above the pine trees. The soundless wind said the world has come to an end. No cars driving by, no sound of the neighbors, only a sound of radiation from a strange moment in time. We should get home, I say. We walk our stolen food back to my house, not saying a word to one another as we struggle through the snow to get home. I toss my knapsack down in the kitchen and grab a cloth and begin to wash the food, hoping no radiation or sickness would come inside of our clean house. The rest did the same thing. We place all the items on the kitchen floor. There was not enough space on the counter. That should feed us for about a month, Tom says. This does not feel right without Mom or Dad here, I say. We will find them, Jill, Steph says. I cannot believe the world is ending, Tom says. The world is not ending, I bark. Okay, Jill, Tom says. I begin to wonder what happened to my parents, what happened to Tom's parents. This is not okay. I only recall several years of living and this is something I would not have expected. Months went by and we see no one. The initial excitement of my parents' disappearance left weeks ago. The television stations went black, and the power was shut off to our house. I do not talk much. I have nothing to talk about except trauma. I sit in my room next to the window. The little light the day offered would soon end. I gaze at the replaced window that appeared to me to be replaced by my father against me, the one that not too long ago I threw my computer monitor through, hating my father. Still, the rage inside could almost be felt, but I was too comfy to check to see if it were still there. Where could my parents be? I hated them in ways, or I thought I hated them. Why were my parents living on Holden Street to begin with? Why am I here? I begin to recall my younger years. I remember when my dad brought me to my first day of school. I loved that day, and that entire year. The second and third grade at the school were great as well. I remember a young boy in fourth grade giving me a hard time. I told my dad about it. My dad thought to bring me to school and bring me before the younger boy. expressed to me that the young boy was a good boy, which gave him a seat not only at school but in my family as well and left me with no seat in the least. I put my head down. I recall how upset I was when all the children abandoned me for the attention of the young boy that was giving me the hard time. I hated my dad for that. Later, in the school year, the boy came up to me and seemed as if he were welcoming me to his world which before was my world. I hated my dad for that. I hated my dad for that. My dad is rich, we were supposed to be better than everyone, but I guess not. I put my head down and began to whimper. Suddenly my tears turned into laughter. I know what I will do. I will do the same thing to him. Dad, you can come out now. The pandemic was not a bad thing. This house is not a bad house. Steph walks into the room. Jill, who are you talking to? My dad. I am welcoming him into the paper corporation, I say, giggling. Steph follows me into the kitchen and out the back door. We walk over to the secret door, the locked door located at the back of the house. Good, it is unlocked, I say, walking inside. The room looks about the same as it did the first time we were in here, although some of the paperwork and pictures were moved, plus a fresh cup of coffee was placed on the piano. First, I must make sure my parents are not in the house. Mom, Dad, I say into the partially lit room. I glance over at the pictures on the piano. I look at the arrangement. Steph, look, these appear arranged as if they are trying to say something. Steph says, those look like pictures of you. This one looks like you, I say, pointing at a picture. Whoever put the pictures here must have wanted those who saw it to celebrate the Paper Corp. I pick up a photo of a young girl in front of a sign that read Paper Corp. The next picture was of the young girl lovingly hugging her parents. I pick up the news article next to the pictures. It read, Rug's family buys their daughter a small business, Paper Corp. They bought Paper Corporate for Ms. Rug, I say. She looked so happy in the pictures. I began to long for such love and happiness. I wish I were closer to my parents. Steph looks over at me. Jill, Steph says, what happened with you and your parents? What do you mean? From time to time you will accidentally mention you do not like them, or you will say you hate them, Steph says. I never thought of it a severe thing, Jill begins explaining, but sometimes I wish they were a little more on my side, that they protect me, I say. They seem to do that, Steph says. Yes, they do, but I am sure if a better person was over here, they would rather be family with that person. It is definitely not like these pictures, a strong chain of love, it is rather like a few weak links. Do you remember when you first moved over here, and we were in the closet and we began talking about possible past lives? Steph inquires. What if these pictures are your past life? Steph conveys. And look here, Steph says, pointing to a photo, what if I lived in that rock? See the rock with the two girls standing by it? Yes, I answer. That was me and you in the past. You always said you were my mother, Steph says. I put my head down. I began recalling small amounts of information. If this is my past life, it sure looks like a dream life, that nothing could be better than this, an entire business for me, and I sit here feeling as if I am unloved. What if my dad bought me an entire business? Once the invitation was given, I lost the known reality and while chuckling said, well, I am your mother and you hated me constantly hanging out in your room, so my dad built you a hidden room in a rock. Yes, exactly. Steph says, excited. Your dad's dad lives in this room, his dad lives in the attic and his dad lives in the woods. He was always your favorite because he does not regard gravity reality when he is with us and lets us do whatever, Steph says. I laugh and smile recalling the time in the woods. That store was awesome, Grandpa must have helped us build it. I snap back into reality hoping I will not be suddenly hurt by an unexpected moment. Let us go back inside, we do not want to bother Grandpa's music studies. Bye Grandpa, I say walking out onto the backyard lawn. We shut the door behind us. Trust me, you love this home, you have always loved this home. Steph declares. 12. Ms. Rug hug. M. Aunts of living without my parents and fighting off clutter. I grew tired. All I could want is my parents. I would love to cast the burden of protecting the house into their hands. There is no reality anymore, no school, no food, no expectation of tomorrow. When I dream of former days, despite the fact I hated my dad for not putting me first back ago in 4th grade. When I dream of the days that had taken place. Some of my most precious memories was at those hard times. I suppose I never utterly hated my dad for betraying me, My mind, now, seems to tell me I somehow enjoyed it. I could almost think he was being kind for preferring the young boy, that possibly he was being both nice to him and me. In any case, it was not like I ever truly was stepped on. I wish I could see my dad again. I wish there were never a pandemic. Tom, Steph, and I, lacking our normal ups and downs, have nothing to talk about, and because of that our days are filled with nothingness. Tom, from time to time, brings to our attention that we could be rebellious and break into some of the neighbors' houses, in a bad way. He said, if we break in, that will support our nothingness, but we are not bad people, so we never did it. My mind slowly forgot about a lot of my childhood, same with Steph and Tom. Once we knew we needed to hold on to reality or a reality, we chose the last thing that made us happy, and that was some of the moments we had in the closet. Those moments gave a sense of rest, kind of like a vacation from reality. We thought letting go of the former reality would be a lot more fun, but once we did, it was not as exciting without its adversity. Because it was not fun anymore, we decided to re-include our former reality, but this time we would have control over it and make believe only the things we would want to be in the former reality. The first thing we decided to reinsert was the suburb house that we moved out from, the house we lived in before we lived in the mansion. Spring had just recently welcomed itself into the neighborhood. I thought it would be nice to walk over there and recall the wonderful times I had in our former house. Small pebbles and sand make a sound as I step out into the spring sunlight. The outdoor sunlight speaks as if I could live in that one moment continuously. A 5-minute walk felt like seconds in the excitement of the spring environment. The doors are locked, Tom says on the steps in front of the door to our former house. Knock it in, I declare. Okay, Tom says. He turns around, his back facing the door. He picks up his leg and with his boot back kicks the door. One solid knock, the door pops open. No one has moved in here yet, I exclaim. You were just over here the other day, and it looks the same as we left, Frog adds. I am going to my room, I am going to pretend we still live here, I mention while walking to my former room. My bedroom almost looks the same as it did when we moved here, but much smaller. I enter the room, I look at the half-replaced window in the back of the room, the window I threw my computer monitor through. I begin to walk out of my room. I say, Dad, you can come out now, you are re-welcomed into your house, you do not have to hide, you just have to be better than a sickness. Suddenly the front door slams shut. Is that what you call that, a sickness? A deep-sounding voice utters. Walking down the stairs, I hear Steph ask, did you hear that? Maybe we should leave, Tom says. I think that voice was my dad, I state. Sorry, Mr. Flippy, Tom shouts into the environment. He is not all that sorry, Dad. Remember, you just have to be better than a sickness. We will be at the mansion when you want to come home, I say. Leaving the front door open as we leave, leaving in a rush, I look behind me and watch an unseen being slam the door shut so hard that one of the hinges on the door broke. Once we were in the mansion and the doors were locked, doors began to move on their own, especially the closet doors. Things quickly began to get tossed out of the closets. We rush upstairs to my bedroom. We rush over to my bed. The closet doors begin to violently swing open and closed. Is that your dad, Jill? Steph asks. Maybe, I say. I walk over to the closet door. I yell, I am not scared of you. I begin to pick up some of the stuff being tossed out of the closet. I noticed things being tossed out that I had not recently put into the closet. I pick up one of the photos that was tossed close to my feet. I begin to recall the many lives I lived here. I remember growing up, my family, children, friends, and mostly Papercorp. This is my house, Jill. This is our house, I hear my dad say from within the closet. Then it is, I yell back. The room quickly grows silent and calm. Times later, I say to my dad, it is a good thing being home. We must have been away for 10 years. Yes, Jill, it is good to be home, Dad says. Jill Rugg, it is good that you are home, Mom says, pouring me a fresh glass of orange juice. Credit to Dad, he can, and is sometimes a sickness, I say while cackling. The end. Epilogue. That clutter in the front of the door, Jill, was not there, Tom says. Exactly, it was not, but now it is. Let's forget about it. I never thought we would have seen something strange coming over to the old mansion. I simply wanted to impress Steph, I say looking at Tom. That was amazing, Jill, Steph says, wrapping her arms around me saying, let's go home. Brendon Holden, always having hidden his ability to create and specially to create for the public, worked over the past year on this new and exciting book, Clutter in my closet, adding in some new ideas while writing about some poor So null experiences that he has had but never finding an outlet to communicate them. Brendon Holden has written other books such as Smoking by the River and children's books titled Toby Learns Patience and Max the Juggler. He has expressed works of art in such books as Drawings by Brendon and Art. He is also author of The Game and 7th Grade Streets. Most likely Brendon is recognized for his work in creating Behind the Night Sky. It would be a delight to his heart that not only is his work enjoyed, but that society benefits from it as much as the creative ideas have benefited him. As Vermont has been, and as the entire United States has been stable in past generations, Brendon hopes that through these books, Clutter in My Closet, Behind the Night Sky, and other books, such as The Game and 7th Grade Streets, consciously aware of the many great men and women making it possible for others to raise their children in an educated world, to remain in high hopes for their future as well as the future of their children, to have an education, the option to prosper, and to live the American dream, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now knowing that these stories are going beyond America, my hopes for the rest of the world and universe are the same, to remain in high hopes for yourself as well as the future of your children. Children.